In this video, we're going to be covering another SQL question. This is question number 1270 of Leetcode. All people report to a given manager. We have a table employees. We have been given an employee ID, an employee name, and a manager ID. So employee ID is the primary key. You're going to have only one of the employee ID in like one instance of one employee ID, because that's the primary key of the table. Each row of this table indicates that the employee with the ID employee ID and the name employee name reports to a direct manager with the manager ID. So the head of the company is the employee with the employee ID underscore employee underscore ID is equal to 1. So what you need to do is to write a query to find employee underscore ID of all employees that directly or indirectly report their work to the head of the company, and the indirect relation between managers will not exceed 3 managers as the company is small. Return result table in any order. Query format is in the following example. So we have bunch of employees in here. This employee with the employee ID 1 is actually the boss. He only reports to himself. We need to come up with the IDs of the employees who either report to boss, or their managers report to boss, or their managers report to boss. And we have been told that this linkage can't go beyond 3 levels. So so look at this one, that Alice is a person who's going to report to himself. So Alice is definitely not going to be in the result. The second one, Bob directly reports to boss, so that is going to be in there. And then the third one is the Bob. We talked about the Bob directly reports to boss. Then we have an employee ID 4, which is gonna be employee ID is gonna be 4, which actually reports to the employee ID with 2, which actually reports to Bob, which indirectly reports to boss, whose employee ID is 1. Okay, the fourth is covered. Let's go to the seventh one. Lois reports to 4, which is Daniel reports to 2, which is Bob reports to boss. All three are gonna make it to the result. Okay, the way we're gonna be implementing it is, we know that for sure that only 3 levels are gonna be there. So basically that's what we're gonna say. We have 4 different instances of the same table, and we're gonna be joining them, every single instance of the table with on like the first instance dot manager ID is equal to the second instance dot employee ID. So let's take an example of Bob, whose manager ID is actually equal to the Bob ID. So in this case, that is gonna make it to this select statement. Then we have the third instance, where again we're gonna keep doing it 4 times, and basically 3 times, because there are 3 different levels. So we are joining this table like manager ID to the next employee ID, the manager ID of that next table to the employee ID of the third one, similarly. And again we're gonna say that the first one, a dot employee ID, shouldn't be equal to 1, and whereas the d dot employee ID should be equal to 1, because we don't want the instance where Bob is gonna show up in the result, because the first table's employee ID should not be equal to 1, whereas the last table's employee ID should be equal to 1. But here is another thing which I was wondering is, like, let's take an example of Bob here, right? So how would the Bob show up if we keep iterating it? So basically, if Bob's manager ID is the boss employee's ID, the next time it's gonna just for the 3 times, like it's gonna be, so just think of it that it's not gonna be chosen in the first instance. Maybe it's gonna be chosen at the third instance, which where we will look at the Bob, and we will see that the uh, Bob manager's ID is the boss's employee ID. Or you can think of it in another way, that let's say that I take the Bob here, right, and then the manager ID, try to see if it is equal to that. It is equal to the boss's employee ID. And then the next one is gonna be who is, like I'm gonna match boss's manager ID to the employee ID, which is again gonna be good. Then for the third time, I'm gonna say that the boss's manager ID is again equal to employee ID, so Bob would make it to the result. So what I'm trying to say is, like, even though we are kind of hard coding that we're gonna be doing the left join 4 times, whether it's he directly reports to boss, or there is one level of hierarchy, or there are 3 levels of hierarchy. Either way, when someone actually directly reports to the boss, he is gonna keep iterating, he's gonna keep reporting to himself, so he would be able to make it to the result. The only constraint we have is that we are saying that the first one, where we are starting to left join, shouldn't be in the result, and the last one, the employee ID should be equal to 1. That's all I wanted to cover in this video. Thanks for watching.